agora sim, pessoal. Como é que vocês estão? Vamos para mais um CEO Talks. Agora vamos ver o do Eric Schmidt, que ele é Executive Chairman da Alphabet, que é o grupo da Google, né? Ele vai falar sobre Just Say Yes.
It's great to be back, wearing my almost Stanford red, and I'm excited for you all to graduate, and I'm excited for the first years to make it to the second year, and it's just wonderful to be here. I will tell you that in the 14 years I've been teaching here, the faculty I think has been pretty much the same, and the students just are getting more impressive, right? So you really are the best. And my guess is that 10 years from now, the students will be even stronger. That's extraordinary for the statement of what Stanford has been able to do. What I wanted to do is talk for a few minutes about the age that we're in and the age we're going to. And then I thought, since I've been here so long and because we talk a lot about these things, talk a little bit about sort of life advice, some of the things that we talk about in our class, and maybe you can debate and disagree or agree on this or anything else, or perhaps present your latest startup idea and see how well you do in front of your peers. I'm convinced that we're actually entering an age of abundance. And that age of abundance is defined by too much information, right? The first thing was turn off your Twitter feed so that you could actually focus on something. Whenever people say turn off your phone, I always say don't turn off your phone, we're in the phone business. You get the idea. We clearly have too much food, right? The world is not only capable of feeding itself, but in fact, obesity and weight gain and so forth are becoming major healthcare issues around the world. There are startups and industrial processes that will solve many of the housing problems we have worldwide, and we're going to have abundant housing of relatively high quality. And it looks like we're going to have pretty ubiquitous transportation as a service, high quality also as well. So a lot of the things that we've talked about as we arrive in this age of abundance look pretty good. But at the same time, it's pretty clear to me that while we're going to have the sort of material things in great supply, we're still going to have religious, nationalistic, and personal conflicts to look forward to, right? I think that's the reality, right? And speaking as your local technology optimist, we haven't been able to quite fix those problems yet. People, too much in others' worlds, too much regulation, too much anxiety, a loss of egalitarianism. We've sort of forgotten the benefits of integration and tolerance, right? We seem to be sort of backtracking on some of the core values that have gotten us to this august state that Stanford and we all are here today. And it's funny when you look back at the election, who would have thought that the KGB would be back through Twitter and Facebook? I mean, that's not the prediction we made a year ago here at the school, right? And yet it's very real. So how are we going to react to this? Are we going to react to this in terms of regulation and suppression and so forth? Are we going to end up in the equivalent of suburban cul-de-sacs that are highly protected from this abundance? How are we going to sort this out? I don't think society has figured this out. The principles that I've been operating under, which I would encourage you to operate under, are personal freedom and economic freedom. And if you look at the history of the world and you look at where we've all come from, right, the fact that we've got here is because we had those two things. And in fact, it's interesting, I looked this up, at no point in history have you all had a better likelihood of living a long and fruitful life, just on average and in specific. Very interesting, right? After all the complaining, your expected outcome is higher in almost every category. I don't know. It's interesting. A child born today is expected to live about 90 years, right? Children born by the mid-century are expected to live at least 100 years. It's pretty good news. That's average, right? We all understand averages. And by the way, when you have such a long expectancy, my core advice is that you need to brush your teeth because you're going to need them, right? So let's establish some basic rules here. You have to think about these things. And the world has this interesting way of changing. So when I graduated from college in the 1970s, I graduated as an engineer, an electrical engineer, and there were lengthy studies of the fact that there would never be jobs for engineers in the future. And in fact, I was going into a job market where it was not obvious that engineers would have jobs at all. We might be doing other things. Of course, we wanted to be engineers. But I pressed forward. The computer that I used in college has as its replacement in roughly the same building a computer that is 100 million times more powerful. I went to visit it. Right? That's a lot of change, right, in that period of time. So if we're in this sort of age of abundance that I'm describing now, what happens after this? How does this transition? And I'm convinced that the age of abundance leads to the age of intelligence. And I'll tell you why. It has a lot of implications, probably the defining thing for your business careers and perhaps for your personal lives as well. The technological boom, the parts that many of us have involved with, people here in the room and myself obviously, have produced the following facts. Computer vision is now better than human vision. Even if you're drunk, right? It's still better. That's a pretty big deal. The analytical systems that are being built now can do better planning and analysis for any system that has variable inputs, that is variable supply, and variable demanders, right? Much of the business and dynamic world does that. And you say, well, why is he talking about this? Because that will underpin much of what you do. In medicine, it turns out, shockingly, we're all the same, right? All of us, all human beings, right? If you get enough of us and you do enough analysis of our healthcare outcomes, you can materially improve healthcare. Whether it's precision medicine or better drug discovery, the technologies such as the technology that AlphaGo, for example, represents, which is the reinforcement learning that won the game against Go, for those of you who don't know, it's a very big deal, is analogous to the kind of technology you would use to look at candidates for doing protein folding to apply to generate new drugs. So you go from winning a game to perhaps winning the real game, which is making us healthier and solving diseases. So what does this mean for you all? Well, let's talk about cars, right? How many of you know someone who's had a tragic family loss, somebody died in a car accident? I think that in your lifetimes, and perhaps sooner, we'll get to the point where cars are as safe as flying on commercial airliners. I won't make a joke about that. In terms of accidents in the air, right? Basically, when you get on a commercial airliner today, it's safer than it is driving to the airport in your car. So the engineering and the capability and the ability to do computer vision and so forth will in fact take something that is really, a crude way of saying it is that 90 people are scheduled to die today driving cars. We just don't know who yet. It's a horrific thing to say, isn't it? But those are the numbers. And by the way, they're going up, right, for various reasons. We need to fix this, and it'll get fixed very soon. In the next few years, the process will really begin. So if you think about vision as a solved problem, then what does that do for radiology and pathology? So when you go to the dermatologist, you really want the dermatologist to use a computer assistant way of looking at your skin to make the diagnosis to help you get healthy and so forth. Why? Because the computer can see more skin than the ophthalmologist. It can literally see more eyes if it's diabetic retinopathy. So I am convinced that these technologies that I'm describing are so profoundly powerful that they will underpin the creation of some fantastic, large new corporations that are just in the process of being founded. It's always been true in my career, now this is my 5th or 6th cycle doing this, that when you get a wave like this, the kind of things that I'm talking about, that the great new corporations get founded, right, by entrepreneurs who take advantage of the things that we've learned here and the principles of open markets and the capital investment and so forth. We wrote a book about this. So when I think about it, what is the emerging tech model of success? It's no longer slow product cycles. It's fast iteration learning. Your product, your app changes every week. extremely deep sensing and telemetry data on everything that you care about in your business, making the customer or using the customer's information to educate you and learning from them. Remember, if you've got 1 million customers...
É legal isso aqui que ele falou, né? Que as empresas de tecnologia hoje em dia não trabalham mais com ciclos lentos, né? E não trabalham com ciclos longos, né? São tudo interações rápidas, né? Mesmo a proposta do Lean Startup, do MVP, né? Onde você vai construir um produto, você vai validar o seu produto, você vai pegar feedbacks sobre o seu produto e você vai fazer isso rapidamente tudo de novo, né? Então você planeja, constrói, desenvolve, cria o que você quer, né? Aí você pega, coleta feedbacks, coloca no mercado, testa, prova o valor dele, colhe feedbacks e aí cria de novo, adiciona uma funcionalidade, gera um novo valor ou coisa do gênero e vai assim fazendo interações para que a empresa possa se desenvolver mais rápido, né? E assim que o mercado tem feito, né, as interações com a tecnologia, né? Então, daí ele comentou também sobre ter uma pessoa que seja especialista em criação de valor para vida do cliente, né? Para as interações do cliente, né? Então, justamente no caminhar desse cliente, né? Nessas etapas que o cliente está junto com você, né? O ciclo de vida do cliente precisa ter pessoas que conheçam o ciclo de vida do cliente, né? E é isso aí.
Educating you and you use machine learning, you can learn from them and become better than any single one of them. You make them better and you get the benefit of their training of you. So any solution where there's a large training set, a large community, these technologies will transform the economics, the potential, the brands, and the impact that they have. And to do this, of course, you'd put everything into the Google Cloud, or perhaps Amazon, if not us. And you'd use TensorFlow, which is a new library that we released to do this. And I think that it's possible that these next generation of companies, the ones that you and others will found, can get to 90% market share models, right? Because you move so quickly. That success model has not slowed down, right? You read the press and everybody goes, oh, well, there's this big company and that big company. There's never been more opportunity than now to create these companies because the barriers to entry are so low, the tools are so powerful, and the need is so great. And we can talk about this some more with questions and comments. So I thought I would talk a little bit about being a student here, right? Being a graduate, being what you will be. And I thought about it for a while, and I thought, this is a great year to be you, right? You managed to get here, and you're either about to graduate or about to graduate in a year. And I would strongly encourage you to not succumb to the anxiety that everyone else seems to have, but rather to carefully go through the capability of the disruptions all around you and figure out how you can solve a new problem. Simplify your life in this case. Focus on the things that you care about. Family, relationships, changing the world, making money, whatever it is. It's okay, but get focused on that. Don't be distracted. Most people that I know, especially in your generation, spend too much time on things which are distracting rather than focusing. And often they're things that they really can't change anyway. Stop worrying about things that you can't control and try to make your own luck. Now you say, well, how do I make my own luck? Well, first, you've been pretty lucky to get here. Good answer, right? And I consider myself the same. I'll tell you the story of my very close friend, Eric Lander. He was teaching, at a business school, and he thought, I want to do something new. And he decided to move to Boston because he figured that was the highest number of interactions that would occur per unit of time in the areas that he cared about. He knew nothing about genetics. He shows up, he wanders around, he meets a faculty member who turns out to be a brilliant geneticist, and working with him becomes a brilliant geneticist himself, one of the most famous in the country. But he had to move to Boston because that's where the target was. And then he was willing to accept the risk. So sometimes life works that way, right? That you move there but he made the luck happen. And in fact, when I say this, remember that almost everything that happens to you happens because of the people that you're with, right? Every single success that I've had has been because I was surrounded by these incredibly interesting and successful people. As a technical person, as a PhD, in my career and so forth and so on. But force yourself to take advantage of all of this. Don't just sit at home. Live your life to the fullest. The most successful people work hard and play hard, which means you should not watch television. You should watch YouTube, right? It's very clear. This sort of change we can believe in is in fact you, right? Your ability to adapt to this environment around. I would also suggest that you develop at least a fake charm if you don't have any. Take a picture of someone's child and send it to the parent. Explain to someone's parent how valuable their employee is. By the way, it works every time, right? Trust me. Don't say nice hairdo, which is what I would say. Say, love your new hair and the combination with that jewelry is sublime, right? That's fake charm. It works very well. When you're asked what your favorite number is, always say 17. Shows you understand prime numbers. Right? You need a leg up. You went to Stanford. The best prefix in a sentence is the word imagine. If I say imagine to you, right, that means I'm talking to you. I'm getting you to think. I'm getting you to be curious. That you're hopeful. Seek meaning versus novelty. It's fun to have novelty, but meaning is really how you get your life, how you make your life happen, right? As you create accomplishments, it's the meaning and the impact that you have and the people that you work with which will provide this incredible satisfaction. One of my sort of pet peeve with strategy is that it's always taught in a short time frame. But in fact, the best strategies have longer time frame horizons. There's these traditional sayings, which I like, which are we tend to overestimate what can be done in 18 months and underestimate what can be done in 10 years. Watch a movie from 10 years ago or an interview in the technology space from 10 years ago and see how much has changed, starting with your mobile phone, to make the point. But almost all of the strategies, if you don't think about them right, fail within a 5-year period. So have a 5-year plan, and of course do it not just for your business, but also for yourself personally. Be extraordinarily curious, and don't assume the status quo is unchangeable. I learned this from Larry and Sergey, who basically just eschewed tradition, because I was sort of a traditionalist. And what do we have today publicly? We have Trump and Brexit, all of these things. Almost all of the emerging tech startups are essentially disruptive in the economic sense and the political sense, and they were unexpected. You should expect the unexpected as a result. And success then is determined by persistence, that is grit, as well as curiosity, and you have to combine both. You have to be willing to do both. So the way to be happy then, you put all this together, is to have meaning in your life is literally to serve others in what you do, right? That ultimately that's the thing that will matter the most. It's why I teach here. It's why many of you will come back and honor the university that you're a part of. But if I make a list, I think stay open to new things and unlock more happiness. Be happy, surround yourself with new things, new ideas. Avoid preconception and know more truths, right? Literally know things. But it seems to me that in order to be disciplined, in order to get this, that is to have your own freedom, you have to have enough self-discipline, right? And enough sort of focus, persistence, if you will, to get what you want. So it's almost an oxymoron, but it works. Now you sit there and you go, at the end of the day, what's your proof, Eric? Well, poverty, $1 a day changed 80% in my lifetime. Plunged, right? So if you think that, I was sitting in a meeting a couple of days ago with somebody who said, oh, you know, things are terrible in the developing world. And I said, they've always been terrible and they're less terrible, right? Those are the facts, right? My father took pictures when he was roughly you guys' age. He was traveling around Africa, and you look at the pictures of Africa then versus the Africa now, it's still poor, but it's a lot less poor, to the credit of the people who built that. I think to finish with this and go to your questions, I would say, I think you should recognize that inequality is going to increase in the world in our current economic system, and you need to be grateful that you're on this side of the inequality dispersion. I don't think we know how to solve that problem as a society, and it's an important one to solve. It's a problem, and you're on the good side of that. Be grateful about it. And I also think that, as I said at the beginning, we seem to have lost this egalitarian notion, at least in the media and in the politics of many countries now, not just in America. I think you should recognize that diversity is a strength, tolerance is a virtue, that most people are doing what they think the world asks for them, and that the essential human virtue is goodness. Right? Start there.
Que legal, né? O que ele falou aí, a virtude essencial humana ser a bondade, né? E como muitos países têm buscado, acabam perdendo essa noção de igualitarismo, né? Onde você deve colocar lado a lado a uma pessoa e estar como igual, né? Pelo menos na mídia, né? Na política de muitos países. E é legal falar que ele também disse sobre a questão da disciplina e o foco que vai moldar você para ter anos de prosperidade e abundância, né? Que vão fazer com que você faça cada vez mais atividades com mais qualidade, com mais sabedoria, né? E a disciplina e o foco que mudam o jogo, né? Então, a questão de acordar cedo, a questão de fazer sempre, de fazer de maneira repetitiva um trabalho que acaba fazendo a diferença, né? E se colocar como uma autoridade no assunto, né? Então, essas são algumas maneiras de você estar passando à frente das outras pessoas quando você fala sobre negócios, empreendedorismo, ou o que for, né? No meu caso, cookies de chocolate, né? De red velvet, Nutella, o que for. Então, que é a minha empresa Cookie 9. E é isso aí.
This solve that. Also, at least I think they supposed to ask me sort of say yes to things. Just say yes. Just say yes. Figure out a way to do it. Find a way to say yes to things. Say yes to invitations to a new country. Say yes to meet new friends. Say yes to learn something new. Yes is how you get your first job, your next job, your spouse, even your kids. Even if it's a bit edgy, a bit out of your comfort zone, saying yes means that you'll do something new, meet someone new, and make a difference. Yes lets you stand out in a crowd, be the optimist, see the glass full, be the one that everyone comes to. Yes is what keeps us all young. So with that, thank you very much.
Legal isso, né? Sobre falar sim para as coisas, né? Então, começar a dizer muito mais sim do que não, né? Muito provavelmente, por exemplo, na vida do vendedor, você toma muito mais não do que receber sim, né? Mas diante do que você recebe, ou do que você quer criar, ou do que você quer se aproximar, ou experiências que você quer ter, né? Justamente dizer sim para elas e buscar a crescer através de dizer sim para as coisas, né? Então, uma visão muito interessante dele.
Let's see. How are we going to do? You have some mics, comments, or questions? Any topic is good.
As we talked about before, if you have a question, just please make yourself known to Julie or Ali, and then stand up, introduce yourself, and ask Eric directly.
Hi, Steve Reardon, MSX. I was interested in your concept of abundance, and that obviously feels right. One of the interesting things is that the societies where this abundance is occurring do appear to be becoming more unequal. And I wonder how you think about that from a policy and technology point of view, and whether you think technology has any role to play, I guess, in the future, and is this a risk to the world?
So Jared Cohen and I wrote a book on this, and we looked a lot at the basics of connectivity. And my initial assumption was that connectivity would be uniformly improving for everyone in the world. So one of the stories that we talk a lot about is the story of third world connectivity, that is developing connectivity, and the power of very, very inexpensive smartphones. And one of the things that I am proudest of, and Google and Android play a major, major role in this, is that phone, when it arrives in the village, is far more important than the arrival of television a while earlier, because it's a source of entertainment, of information, of communication, and of safety, of photography, and all of that. And it really has changed much for the better. And we're, in billions and billions of people. We're going to go from roughly 3 billion people online to roughly 5 because of those phones. But then we went back and we said, well, if that's such a great news, right, what's the math? And the math is that while connectivity for those people is getting much better, the bandwidth to the developed world is increasing far greater, right? So if you take that simple dialogue, which is capitalism, global trade improves life at the bottom, but the people at the upper crust are vastly more empowered with something as powerful as bandwidth. That's a simple example of this. It's obviously true of many other things. So in industries where you have declining costs, which is communications, computer chips, silicon, that kind of thing, I think the story is at least you can get it everywhere, as long as, and that's also going to be true of food. So remember, food, a lot of the food in the future will be essentially processed, manufactured in new ways, right? Eventually, certainly in your lifetimes, some, if not all of the meat you will eat will have been developed from real meat. It will be grown in the equivalent of a culture, not in the equivalent of a cow. And you sit there and say, well, that sounds like a terrible idea. Well, it's going to have a lot fewer diseases. It's going to be a lot healthier for you, and people will work that out. So the economic answer is that you're better off letting trade happen and letting this inequality occur, and then use redistributionist policies or other mechanisms, right, to support the less fortunate. And I'm roughly in that camp. I'm skeptical that if you look at an aggregate basis, we're probably better off doing the trade, doing the investment, creating the companies, allowing it to become, and then making the difference with policies of one kind or another. And you can do this with minimum wages, you can do this with various other forms of subsidies, lots and lots of benefits that are needed to make up for the gap. And I should say, by the way, that what I just said is completely politically unpalatable because of the hollowing out that's going on in rural and manufacturing areas around the world. For example, if you go in France, right, Paris is very dynamic, as it always has been, but there's a job problem outside of, even in a socialist country, outside of it because of all these changes. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Patrick Daniel. Thanks so much for sharing your insights. I really appreciate it. So I was wondering to hear your thoughts on sort of the revolution that's happening with blockchain technology and decentralized network.
É legal, né? Eu vou parando por aqui, que eu achei que ele ia falar por mais tempo, né? Mas a princípio tá ótimo demais. E Vou encerrar a live para subir no YouTube aqui o conteúdo, fazer uns cortes e em seguida vou voltar pro trabalho, começar a trabalhar. Tá bom? Falou, valeu pessoal.